Olivia and Michael stood under the archway of vibrant flowers, their eyes locked in a promise of forever. The sun bathed the garden in a golden hue, casting a perfect glow on the happiest day of their lives. As they exchanged vows, surrounded by friends and family, Olivia felt a surge of hope and excitement for the future. Little did she know, the joy of this moment was the calm before the storm. Margaret, Michael's mother, stood in the front row, her smile strained and eyes calculating. Even in the midst of such celebration, her presence was a constant reminder of the subtle tension that had begun to weave itself into the fabric of Olivia's life. Margaret was a woman of formidable presence, with a reputation for getting her way and a keen ability to cloak her dominance in concern and affection. Olivia and Michael's story began a few years prior, in a quaint bookstore where their shared love for literature sparked an instant connection. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and it wasn't long before they realized they were meant to be together. However, from the moment Margaret entered the picture, she had strong opinions about every aspect of their relationship. Margaret's influence was particularly felt during the wedding preparations. She had opinions on everything: the venue, the guest list, the color scheme, and even Olivia's dress. Olivia's family, supportive yet distant due to living in another state, watched with concern but chose not to interfere, trusting Olivia's judgment. Margaret's insistence extended to the honeymoon as well, suggesting destinations and even trying to plan the itinerary. Despite their desire for independence, Olivia and Michael found it difficult to refuse her, especially when Michael, seeking to avoid conflict, often sided with his mother. Margaret had also suggested, long before the wedding, that the couple live with her after the ceremony. "It's a big house, and I could use the company," she had said, making it sound like a generous offer. The couple was enticed by the idea of saving money for a down payment on their own home, and Michael reassured Olivia that it would be a temporary arrangement. Despite her reservations, Olivia agreed, hoping to maintain harmony. The reception was a whirlwind of laughter and dancing, but Olivia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Margaret's gaze was ever present, assessing and judging. Michael, blissfully unaware, twirled Olivia around the dance floor, his love for her evident in every glance. Olivia clung to these moments, hoping they would fortify her against the undercurrents she sensed. After the reception, Olivia and Michael set off on their honeymoon. For those blissful 2 weeks, they were able to escape Margaret's influence. They traveled to a secluded island, where they explored beaches, shared candlelit dinners, and indulged in the happiness of being newlyweds. The honeymoon served as a temporary reprieve, allowing Olivia to forget about her gut feeling and fully enjoy her time with Michael. Upon their return, reality set in as they moved into Margaret's house. The grand, impeccably maintained home was a testament to Margaret's meticulous nature. Olivia felt like an intruder, her presence unsettling the established order. Margaret had already arranged their rooms, from the color of the bedspread to the placement of their belongings. Every detail bore her signature touch. As Olivia lay awake in the unfamiliar bed that night, she realized that their new beginning was already fraught with challenges. Olivia knew she had to find a way to navigate this treacherous terrain, to carve out a space for her and Michael amidst the undercurrents of control and expectation. But for now, she held on to the promise they made to each other, hoping it would be enough to guide them through the storm that was gathering on the horizon. The first morning after their honeymoon, Olivia woke to the smell of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of clinking dishes. She smiled, expecting to find Michael in the kitchen, but her smile faded when she found Margaret instead. Margaret moved about with a brisk efficiency, her presence already dominating the space. Good morning, dear, she said without looking up. I've made breakfast. Sit down and eat. Olivia hesitated, glancing around the kitchen that was now filled with Margaret's energy. Thank you, Margaret, she replied, trying to infuse warmth into her voice. I thought I might cook something special for Michael today. Nonsense, Margaret said, placing a plate of eggs and toast in front of her. I've always made breakfast for Michael. It's our little tradition. Olivia felt a pang of frustration, but forced a smile. Of course. Thank you. As days turned into weeks, Olivia's feeling of suffocation grew. Margaret took over household duties with a relentless vigor. She reorganized the kitchen, refolded the laundry Olivia had already done, and even changed the decor in their bedroom. Every attempt Olivia made to assert her presence was met with Margaret's condescending corrections. This is how we do things here, dear, Margaret would say, her tone leaving no room for argument. One evening, Olivia decided to prepare a special dinner for Michael. She spent hours in the kitchen, carefully crafting a meal she hoped would remind them of the early days of their relationship. Just as she was setting the table, Margaret walked in, her eyebrows lifting in surprise. Oh, Olivia, you didn't need to go to all this trouble, she said. I've already prepared something. Before Olivia could respond, Margaret began clearing away the dishes she had just placed on the table. Michael prefers his steak medium rare, not medium, Margaret noted, placing her own perfectly cooked dish in its place. Olivia stood there, the joy of her effort evaporating into the air. When Michael came home, he found the two women in a strained silence. Dinner smells great, he said, trying to lighten the mood as he sat down. Olivia watched him with a mix of love and frustration, her silent plea for recognition going unnoticed. As the days passed, Margaret's intrusions extended beyond the household. She questioned Olivia's career choices, subtly undermining her at every turn. Are you sure you want to continue working full-time? It might be too much stress, she would suggest, her voice dripping with concern. Michael, caught between his love for Olivia and his loyalty to his mother, found himself in an impossible position. He tried to mediate, but his efforts often fell short. One night, after an especially tense dinner, he pulled Olivia aside. She's just trying to help, he said, his eyes pleading for understanding. Olivia felt a swell of frustration. Michael, she's not just helping. She's taking over. I need to feel like I belong here too. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know, Liv. I'm trying. It's just complicated. Olivia nodded, tears stinging her eyes. She loved Michael, but the strain of living under Margaret's constant scrutiny was beginning to take its toll. She felt her independence slipping away, each day a battle to assert herself in a house that wasn't truly hers. One weekend, Olivia suggested they spend the day out, just the two of them. We could go to the beach, have a picnic, she said, her eyes lighting up with the prospect of a brief escape. Michael smiled, relieved at the idea. That sounds perfect. But as they were preparing to leave, Margaret intercepted them. Where are you going? She asked, her voice tinged with disapproval. To the beach, Olivia replied, trying to keep her tone light. Margaret frowned. But I was hoping we could spend some time together. Maybe go over the garden plans. Olivia's heart sank. She looked at Michael, who was already torn. Maybe we can do that another day, Mom, he said gently. Margaret's face hardened, but she didn't argue. Very well. Enjoy your day. As they drove away, Olivia glanced at Michael, her heart aching. She wanted to make him understand the depth of her frustration, but the words stuck in her throat. She wanted the day at the beach to be a temporary reprieve, a reminder of the love they shared. Olivia loved her job as a school teacher. The classroom was where she felt confident and in control. But even this safe haven was not immune to Margaret's pervasive influence. It started innocuously enough, with Margaret volunteering at school events. Olivia appreciated her mother-in-law's involvement at first, believing it to be a sign of support. However, she would soon realize that Margaret had other motives. Margaret charmed the other parents and teachers, presenting herself as the doting, concerned mother-in-law. "Olivia is doing such a wonderful job," she would say, her voice dripping with a mix of pride and subtle condescension. "But you know, she can be a bit overzealous at times. Young teachers often are." Rumors began to spread. Whispers of Olivia's supposed overbearing teaching style reached the ears of the school principal. "Parents have been talking," he said to Olivia one afternoon. "They say you push the students too hard. Perhaps you should consider a more relaxed approach." Olivia was blindsided. She had always prided herself on her balanced teaching methods, fostering both discipline and creativity in her students. Yet here she was, defending her professional integrity against baseless accusations. The stress began to mount. Olivia found herself scrutinizing every lesson plan, second-guessing her every move in the classroom. Her students sensed the change, their usual vibrant and engaged teacher now hesitant and anxious. One afternoon, while she was explaining a complex math problem, a student raised his hand and said, "My mom says you give too much homework." Olivia's heart sank. She came to the realization that all this had started after Margaret got involved at school. Could this be true? If so, the invisible hand of Margaret's manipulation was reaching further than she could have ever imagined. At home, the strain of work began to bleed into her personal life. Olivia would come home exhausted, her patience worn thin. Michael noticed the change, but attributed it to the normal pressures of a demanding job. "You should take it easy, Liv," he suggested one evening. "Maybe cut back on some of the extracurricular activities you're running." Olivia wanted to scream. She wanted to tell Michael about the insidious rumors, how she believed the subtle sabotage was being orchestrated by his own mother. But without proof, the accusations felt too grave to bring up. She knew Michael would need more than her word to believe something so damaging about Margaret. Instead, Olivia found a way to appeal to Michael's protective instincts. She expressed her gratitude for Margaret's involvement, but emphasized the stress and effort Margaret was putting into these school functions. "She's doing so much, Michael. I worry it's too much for her," Olivia said one evening. "Maybe we should ask her to step back a bit, for her own sake." Michael, always concerned for his mother's well-being, agreed. "You're right, Liv. I'll talk to her. She doesn't need to be so involved." Relieved, Olivia watched as Michael gently persuaded Margaret to take a step back from the school events. Margaret, although initially resistant, couldn't argue with her son's concern for her health. "I just want to support Olivia," she said, her voice tinged with martyrdom. "And you do, Mom," Michael reassured her. "But you need to take care of yourself too." With Margaret's involvement reduced, the atmosphere at school began to change. Olivia noticed a gradual decrease in the criticisms and unwarranted comments. The stress lifted slightly, but she remained wary. She knew that Margaret's influence was not easily diminished and that she needed to stay vigilant. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window as Olivia sipped her coffee, savoring the quiet before the day's chaos began. She glanced over at Michael, who was deeply engrossed in a stack of documents. His brow was furrowed, a sure sign that something was weighing heavily on his mind. "What's all that?" she asked, setting her mug down and moving to sit next to him. Michael looked up, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. "Just some investment paperwork. Mom thinks it's a great opportunity." Olivia felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. Margaret had a way of inserting herself into their decisions, but this felt different. "What kind of investment?" "A new tech startup," Michael explained, his enthusiasm barely masking the underlying uncertainty. "Mom says it's going to be huge. She's already put in a significant amount of money." Olivia's alarm bells started ringing. "And you didn't think to discuss this with me first?" Michael's face softened, his defensive stance faltering. "I was going to. I just wanted to get all the information first." Days passed, and Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She began to notice small inconsistencies in their finances, bills left unpaid, accounts not adding up. Her unease grew into suspicion, and one evening, while Michael was out, she decided to take a closer look at their bank statements. What she found sent a chill down her spine. Hidden among their transactions were sizable withdrawals and transfers she hadn't authorized. Panic set in as she dug deeper, uncovering a trail of financial discrepancies that pointed to Margaret's influence. Olivia's mind raced. Why would Margaret do this? The answer hit her like a freight train: if they were broke, they would have no choice but to stay with her. The realization ignited a fire within her. She couldn't let Margaret's manipulations dictate their lives. That night, Olivia confronted Michael. "We need to talk," she said, holding up the bank statements. Michael glanced at the papers, confusion clouding his features. "What's this about?" "These transactions," Olivia began, struggling to keep her voice steady, "they're all linked to that investment your mother convinced you to make. We're in serious financial trouble, Michael." Michael's face hardened. "I told you, it's a sound investment. Mom did her research." "Did she?" Olivia shot back, her frustration boiling over. "Or is this just another way to keep us tied to her?" Michael's eyes narrowed, his defenses rising. "What are you implying?" "I'm implying that your mother wants us dependent on her," Olivia said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "She's sabotaging us, Michael." Michael stood up, his jaw clenched. "You're being paranoid, Liv. Mom would never do that." "Wouldn't she?" Olivia countered. "Look at the facts. We're drowning in debt because of this so-called investment. We didn't even discuss it. You just went along with what she said." The room fell into a tense silence. Michael's mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. He trusted his mother, but he also trusted Olivia. Could they both be right? He didn't want to believe that his mother could be so manipulative, yet the evidence was hard to ignore. "I need some air," Michael muttered, grabbing his keys and heading for the door. Olivia watched him leave, her heart heavy. She knew this was just the beginning of their struggle. Margaret's influence was a deep-rooted problem, and it would take more than one confrontation to sever the ties that bound them to her. As Michael drove aimlessly through the night, he couldn't shake Olivia's words. Doubts crept in, eroding his confidence in the decisions he had made. He needed to talk to his mother, to get answers. But he also needed to protect his marriage, to find a way back to the partnership he had promised Olivia on their wedding day. In the days following the tense discussion about their finances, Olivia and Michael reached a fragile truce. They agreed to discuss all future investments together, and Michael promised not to make any more withdrawals without consulting Olivia. The tension between them lingered, but there was a mutual understanding that they needed to work together to navigate their current predicament. One evening, as Olivia was sorting through a stack of papers, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "Olivia, it's Anna," the voice on the other end said, a hint of nervousness in her tone. "Michael's sister." Olivia was surprised. She had met Anna only once, at the wedding. "Anna, hi. This is unexpected." "I know," Anna replied. "Michael and I don't talk much, but he reached out recently, very disturbed by what you said about Mom. I thought maybe we should talk." Intrigued and desperate for insight, Olivia agreed to meet Anna for coffee the next day. As she walked into the cozy cafe, she spotted Anna sitting in a corner booth, nervously stirring her drink. Olivia approached, and they exchanged tentative smiles. "Thanks for meeting me," Olivia said, sitting down. Anna nodded. "I've been meaning to reach out for a while. It's just complicated with Mom." Olivia leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" Anna sighed, her eyes reflecting years of pent-up frustration. "Mom has a way of controlling things, and people. It's why I've kept my distance. I thought maybe I could escape it by staying away, but it seems she's found new ways to meddle." Olivia felt a rush of relief, mixed with anger. She wasn't alone in this struggle. She convinced Michael to invest in a risky business, without even talking to me. Now we're in debt, and I'm sure she's doing it to keep us tied to her. Anna nodded, her expression grim. "That sounds like Mom. She did similar things when I was younger. Manipulating, controlling, making decisions for me. It's why I left." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared experiences, creating an unspoken bond. Finally, Anna spoke up. "Look, I don't have all the answers, but I can help you understand her tactics. Maybe together, we can figure out a way to handle her." Anna shared stories of her own battles with Margaret, offering advice on how to deal with her manipulative tactics. "Michael will only be totally convinced if he sees her true colors for himself," Anna warned. "You need to find a way to make her slip up in front of him." Olivia nodded, determination hardening her resolve. She started to subtly provoke Margaret, hoping to catch her in a moment of unguarded manipulation. But Margaret was cunning, always managing to maintain her facade of concern and support whenever Michael was around. Weeks passed, and Olivia's frustration grew. Then, one evening, Michael came home with a concerned expression. "Mom's been talking to me about Anna," he said slowly. "She says Anna has been spreading lies about our family and trying to turn you against her." Olivia's heart sank. "Michael, you know that's not true. Anna has been nothing but supportive." "I know, but Mom's been very insistent," Michael replied, his eyes troubled. "Maybe it's better if you don't get too close to Anna. She left a long time ago, she does not know Mom like I do." Olivia felt a surge of anger and despair. "I like Anna, and I believe she's a good person." Michael looked torn. "I just don't want things to get worse, Liv." "They won't," Olivia said firmly. Despite Michael's reservations, Olivia continued to see Anna. Their friendship grew stronger, and Olivia drew comfort from the support and understanding Anna provided. Margaret's sudden shift in demeanor was almost too good to be true. One morning, Olivia woke to the smell of freshly baked muffins wafting through the house. She entered the kitchen to find Margaret setting out breakfast with a broad smile. "Good morning, dear. I thought I'd make something special for us today." Olivia blinked in surprise, her suspicion flickering beneath her polite smile. "Thank you, Margaret. That's very kind of you." Margaret's gestures of goodwill continued. She bought Olivia small, thoughtful gifts, an elegant scarf here, a new book there. She even complimented Olivia on her cooking, which was unheard of. "You've really outdone yourself with this dinner, Olivia," she said one evening, raising her glass in a toast. "Michael is lucky to have you." Despite her wariness, Olivia decided to play along, hoping against hope that Margaret's change of heart was genuine. She reciprocated Margaret's kindness, going out of her way to include her in family activities and discussions. It felt like a delicate dance, each step measured and cautious, but Olivia was determined to give this truce a chance. However, beneath the veneer of peace, Margaret was as calculating as ever. One day, as Olivia was about to leave for work, she panicked when she could not find the revised lesson plans for the upcoming term. The deadline was today, and she distinctly remembered placing the documents in her bag the night before, but now they were nowhere to be found. As she frantically searched for the missing papers, Margaret appeared in the doorway, a concerned expression on her face. "Everything okay, dear? I can't find my lesson plans." "I know I put them in my bag," Olivia said, her frustration mounting. Margaret's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "Maybe you're just overworked, Olivia. It happens to the best of us. Let me help you look." And then she came back with the documents, saying she found them at Olivia's desk. Despite her outward sympathy, Margaret's subtle undermining continued. Important documents and personal items began to disappear with alarming regularity. Olivia's keys, her phone charger, even a cherished photo album, each vanished, only to reappear in the most unlikely places. The incidents seemed random, but Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that they were anything but. One evening, as Olivia prepared for a critical meeting with the school board, she meticulously organized her presentation materials. She double-checked everything before heading to bed, feeling a rare sense of calm. But the next morning, her calm shattered when she discovered her presentation flash drive missing. "Margaret, have you seen my flash drive?" Olivia asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. Margaret looked up from her knitting, a picture of innocence. "No, I haven't." "Did you check your desk?" "I left it right here," Olivia insisted, her frustration bubbling over. Margaret sighed, setting down her knitting. "Maybe you should keep better track of your things, Olivia. It's not good to be so scatterbrained." Olivia's heart pounded with a mix of anger and fear. She knew Margaret was behind these incidents, but she had no proof. The sense of helplessness was overwhelming. Later that day, as she hurriedly recreated her presentation from memory, Olivia's mind raced. She needed a plan, a way to expose Margaret's duplicity without causing a direct confrontation. Michael remained blissfully unaware of the silent war being waged in their home, and Olivia didn't want to drag him into it without solid evidence. That evening, after the meeting, Olivia decided to take a different approach. She thanked Margaret for her support and kindness, hoping to lull her into a false sense of security. "I really appreciate everything you've been doing, Margaret. It's made things so much easier." Margaret's smile was wide and seemingly genuine. I'm glad to help, dear. We're family, after all. As Olivia lay in bed that night, her mind churned with plans. She needed to stay one step ahead, to anticipate Margaret's next move. The false peace couldn't last forever, but Olivia was determined to be ready when it shattered. One evening, while Margaret was out running errands, Olivia took a bold step. She purchased a small, discreet hidden camera and carefully installed it in the living room, aiming it to cover the area where most of the incidents occurred. It was a desperate move, but Olivia knew it was her best chance to expose the truth. The next few days were a tense waiting game. Olivia went about her daily routine, interacting with Margaret as if nothing had changed. She kept the camera in the back of her mind, hoping it would capture the evidence she needed. It didn't take long. One afternoon, as Olivia was preparing for a parent-teacher conference, she heard Margaret in the living room. The older woman was on the phone, her voice dripping with feigned concern. Yes, she's trying, but Olivia can be so disorganized. I don't know how she manages to keep her job, honestly. I just hope she doesn't get too overwhelmed. Olivia's blood boiled. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to stay calm and wait. Later, when she was alone, she retrieved the camera and reviewed the footage. Her heart raced as she watched Margaret deliberately hide Olivia's planner under the couch cushions and misplace a set of keys in a potted plant. It was all there, clear as day. That evening, Olivia showed the footage to Michael. She watched his face as he saw his mother's true nature revealed. Shock, disbelief, and finally, a simmering anger crossed his features. I can't believe this, Michael muttered, his voice tight with emotion. She's been sabotaging you all this time. Olivia nodded, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I've been trying to tell you, Michael. She's been undermining me at every turn. Michael took a deep breath, his jaw set in determination. We need to confront her. Tonight. When Margaret returned home, she found Olivia and Michael waiting for her in the living room. Michael stood with his arms crossed, the hidden camera footage paused on the television screen behind him. Mom, we need to talk, Michael began, his voice steady but strained. Margaret's eyes darted to the screen, her face paling. What's this about? She asked, feigning ignorance. Michael played the footage, the damning evidence of her actions filling the room. As the truth unfolded before her, Margaret's composure cracked. I was only trying to help, she stammered, desperation creeping into her voice. Olivia needed to be more organized. I was just guiding her. Guiding her? Michael's voice rose, incredulous. By hiding her things? By spreading lies about her? This is beyond guidance, Mom. This is sabotage. Margaret's mask of control shattered. You don't understand, Michael. I was protecting you. She's not right for you. She's weak and incompetent. Olivia flinched at the harsh words, but Michael stepped forward, his expression fierce. No, Mom. You're wrong. Olivia is strong and capable, and she's my wife. You've been trying to control our lives, and I won't allow it anymore. The room fell into a tense silence. Margaret's face twisted with a mix of anger and hurt. I did it for you, Michael. Everything I've done was for you. No, Mom, Michael replied, his voice softening but still firm. Everything you did was for yourself. You need to let us live our lives. Margaret's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. I just wanted what was best for you. Then let us be, Michael said, his tone final. Margaret looked at Olivia, her eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions, anger, regret, and a touch of grudging respect. She nodded slowly, defeated. "I'll stay out of your way." As she left the room, Olivia and Michael stood together, the weight of the confrontation settling around them. The tension in the house was palpable. The confrontation had stripped away any pretense of peace, leaving raw nerves and unspoken grievances in its wake. Olivia knew it was time for a decisive move, and as she and Michael sat in their room, she took a deep breath and turned to him. "Michael, we can't keep living like this," she began, her voice trembling with the weight of her words. "We need to move out. Our marriage won't survive if we stay here." Michael looked at her, his face a mixture of exhaustion and confusion. "Olivia, where would we go? We're in debt. We can't afford to leave right now." Olivia reached out, taking his hand in hers. "We'll find a way. We can't let your mother control our lives any longer. It's tearing us apart." Michael sighed, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I know, Liv. But it's not that simple. Mom won't just let us leave without a fight." The next morning, Olivia sat across from Margaret at the breakfast table, bracing herself for the confrontation. "Margaret, Michael, and I have decided to move out. We need our own space to work on our marriage." Margaret's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. "You're making a mistake, Olivia. This is your home. I've done everything for you too, and this is how you repay me?" "Margaret, we appreciate everything you've done," Olivia said, trying to keep her tone calm and measured. "But we need to do this for ourselves." Margaret's face twisted with anger and hurt. "This is Olivia's doing, isn't it, Michael? She's turning you against me." Michael's expression was strained as he faced his mother. "No, Mom. This is our decision. We need to find our own way." The emotional blackmail began almost immediately. Margaret's tears flowed freely as she recounted all the sacrifices she had made for them. "I've given up so much for you both. I thought we were a family. How can you just abandon me like this?" Olivia felt her resolve waver, but she held firm. "We're not abandoning you, Margaret. We're trying to build a life for ourselves. We'll still be a family, just not under the same roof." Margaret's resistance was fierce. She alternated between pleading and threatening, using every tool in her arsenal to keep them tethered to her. "You'll regret this, Michael. Mark my words. She's driving a wedge between us." The process of moving out was fraught with tension and drama. Margaret's outbursts became more frequent, her attempts to guilt them into staying more desperate. She would stand in the doorway of their room, watching as they packed, her eyes filled with a mixture of fury and despair. On the day of the move, Margaret made one last attempt to stop them. "If you leave, don't expect to come back," she warned, her voice shaking with emotion. "You're making the biggest mistake of your lives." Michael paused, looking at his mother with a mixture of sadness and determination. "We have to do this, Mom. Please understand." As they loaded the last of their belongings into the car, Olivia felt a pang of guilt. She glanced at Michael, who looked equally torn. The strain of the decision weighed heavily on their relationship, but Olivia held on to the hope that this was the first step toward independence and healing. 6 months had passed since Olivia and Michael moved out of Margaret's house. Their new life, while liberating, came with its own set of challenges. They had to tighten their budget and adjust to the rhythms of managing a household without Margaret's constant interference. But the space gave them room to breathe and to strengthen their bond away from her watchful eyes. One morning, as Olivia stood in their modest kitchen, she felt a wave of nausea. A week later, a pregnancy test confirmed what she suspected: she was pregnant. Overwhelmed with joy and a tinge of anxiety, Olivia and Michael decided to savor their secret for as long as possible. They postponed telling Margaret, fearing her reaction and the inevitable encroachment on their independence. They enjoyed the peace of preparing for their child, quietly celebrating each milestone together. However, their secret couldn't stay hidden forever. At a family gathering, Margaret's sharp eyes noticed Olivia's subtle, but undeniable changes. Her suspicion was confirmed when she caught a glimpse of Olivia's slightly rounded belly. "Olivia, are you pregnant?" Margaret's voice was a mix of shock and excitement. Caught off guard, Olivia and Michael exchanged a glance before nodding. "Yes, Margaret. We're having a baby." Margaret's eyes lit up with unrestrained joy. "Oh, this is wonderful. You'll need so much help. I can move in to support you both." Michael stepped in quickly. "Mom, we appreciate the offer, but we've got things under control. We won't need you to move in." Margaret's smile faltered, but she didn't press the issue, at least not immediately. As the weeks passed, Margaret's excitement translated into constant, uninvited appearances. She began showing up at their doorstep more frequently, often under the pretense of bringing gifts for the baby. She even invited herself to Olivia's doctor appointments, inserting herself into every aspect of their pregnancy journey. One afternoon, Olivia returned home to find Margaret in their living room with a stranger. "Olivia, this is the decorator I hired to design the baby's nursery," Margaret announced, beaming. Olivia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "A decorator?" "Yes, dear. I thought it would be a lovely surprise. I have some wonderful ideas. And look, I even included a bed for me so I can stay and help out." Olivia's heart pounded with frustration. She glanced at Michael, who looked equally stunned and angry. "Margaret, that's very generous, but we've already made our own plans for the nursery." Margaret's smile didn't waver. "Nonsense. You'll need me there, especially in the beginning. It's best for everyone." Michael stepped forward, his voice firm. "Mom, we've already discussed this. You will not be moving in with us. We need to do this on our own." Margaret's face hardened. "You're making a mistake. You'll see how hard it is, and come running back for my help." Olivia took a deep breath, her hands trembling with the effort to stay calm. "Margaret, we love you, but we need you to respect our boundaries. We're the parents, and this is our home. We'll handle things ourselves." Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but behind them was a glint of anger. "If you don't want my help, then fine. Don't come crying to me when everything falls apart." With that, she stormed out, leaving a tense silence in her wake. Michael wrapped his arms around Olivia, holding her close. "We'll be okay, Liv. We can do this." Over the next few weeks, Margaret's dramatic threats and attempts at emotional blackmail intensified. She made every effort to guilt them into allowing her more control, but Olivia and Michael stood their ground. They declined her offers, removed her influence from the nursery design, and continued to emphasize their need for independence. The first sign that something was wrong came one rainy afternoon. Olivia was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, when Michael's phone rang. She heard his voice from the other room, tense and urgent. "Mom? What's wrong?" Moments later, Michael rushed into the kitchen, his face pale. "It's Mom. She's collapsed at home. The neighbor called an ambulance. I need to go to the hospital." Olivia's heart sank. Despite everything, the news hit hard. "I'll come with you." They arrived at the hospital to find Margaret in a hospital bed, looking frail and vulnerable in a way Olivia had never seen before. The doctor explained that Margaret had suffered a stroke. While her condition was serious, she was expected to recover, but it would take time and extensive care. Michael sat by her bedside, holding her hand, his face etched with guilt. "Mom, I'm so sorry. We should have been there for you." Margaret's voice was weak but sharp. "Don't be silly, Michael. I'll be fine." Over the next few days, Olivia found herself caring for Margaret more than she had ever expected. She brought meals to the hospital, managed Margaret's medications, and coordinated with the doctors. Despite their tumultuous past, Olivia's compassion shone through. When Margaret was finally discharged, the doctor emphasized the need for constant care at home. Michael and Olivia knew what they had to do. They moved back into Margaret's house, despite their reservations, to ensure she received the care she needed. One evening, as Olivia adjusted Margaret's pillows and made sure she was comfortable, Margaret looked at her with an expression Olivia had never seen before. "Why are you doing this, Olivia? After everything, why are you here?" Olivia paused, meeting Margaret's gaze. "Because you're Michael's mother, and despite everything, you're part of our family. I care about you, and I want to help." Margaret's eyes softened, a flicker of emotion breaking through her usual stern exterior. "You're a better person than I gave you credit for, Olivia." As the days turned into weeks, Michael watched his wife care for his mother with unwavering dedication. He was struck by Olivia's strength and kindness, qualities that shone even brighter in the face of adversity. His admiration for her grew, and he felt a deep sense of gratitude and love. One night, after Margaret had been settled into bed, Michael and Olivia sat together in the living room, exhaustion and stress weighing heavily on them. Michael took Olivia's hand, his eyes filled with emotion. "Thank you for everything you've done, Liv. It means more to me than you'll ever know." Olivia squeezed his hand, her smile gentle. "We're in this together, Michael. All of it." Margaret's condition slowly improved, but the experience left its mark. She began to soften, her sharp edges worn down by Olivia's genuine kindness. Old habits die hard, however, and there were still moments when her controlling nature reared its head. One afternoon, as Olivia helped Margaret with her physical therapy exercises, Margaret said, "You know, Olivia, you should really reconsider having me move in once the baby comes. It would make things so much easier for everyone." Olivia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Margaret, we've talked about this. We appreciate your offer, but we need to do this on our own. You're welcome to visit and be part of our lives, but we need our own space." Margaret sighed, a hint of resignation in her eyes. "I suppose you're right. You've managed well so far. Just promise me you'll ask for help if you need it." Olivia smiled, feeling a small victory. "We will. Thank you, Margaret." The summer sun filtered through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the wooden floor. Olivia sat in the attic, sorting through old boxes of photographs and mementos. She had come across the dusty boxes while searching for something to keep her mind occupied during a quiet afternoon. As she sifted through the yellowed papers and faded photographs, a small, leather-bound journal caught her eye. Curious, Olivia opened the journal, the pages brittle with age. The handwriting was elegant but strained, revealing the thoughts of a woman grappling with her own demons. As she read, Olivia realized this was the diary of Margaret's mother, Eleanor. The entries painted a vivid picture of a domineering woman, whose iron-fisted control over her daughter had shaped Margaret's entire life. Eleanor's words were filled with harsh criticisms and impossible expectations. She had controlled every aspect of Margaret's life, from her friendships to her education and even her choice of husband. Olivia's heart ached as she read the desperate pleas for freedom and understanding that Margaret had penned in the margins. Olivia closed the journal, her mind racing. This was the key to understanding Margaret's behavior. Her mother's suffocating control had scarred her deeply, driving her to exert the same level of control over her own family. It was a cycle of manipulation and control, born out of deep-seated fear and insecurity. That evening, Olivia approached Margaret, who was resting in the living room. "Margaret, I found something in the attic today," she began gently, holding out the journal. Margaret's eyes widened as she recognized the diary. "Where did you find this?" "In an old box," Olivia replied, sitting down beside her. "I read some of it. I understand now, Margaret. I see what you went through." Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes, and for the first time, Olivia saw the vulnerability beneath her stern exterior. "She was difficult," Margaret admitted, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to be like her, but I suppose I've become her in many ways." Olivia reached out and took Margaret's hand. "You've been through so much. I can't imagine how hard it must have been. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can break the cycle." Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I've always been afraid. Afraid that if I didn't control everything, I would lose everything. But I've been pushing you and Michael away." Olivia's heart ached for her mother-in-law. "We're not going anywhere, Margaret. We're family, and we love you. But we need you to trust us, to let us live our own lives." In that moment, a fragile truce was formed. Margaret's walls began to crumble, exposing the deep wounds that had driven her behavior. Olivia knew it wouldn't be easy, but this was a start. A few days later, Olivia shared her discovery with Anna over the phone. "You need to see this for yourself, Anna. It explains so much about why Margaret is the way she is." Anna's voice was filled with curiosity and a hint of trepidation. "I'll come over tomorrow. We need to talk about this." The next day, Anna arrived, her expression a mix of apprehension and determination. Olivia led her to the attic, where they sat together, reading through Eleanor's diary. As Anna absorbed the painful history, her eyes filled with understanding and sorrow. "I never knew," Anna whispered, her voice breaking. "I always thought Mom was just difficult. But now I see where it all came from." Olivia nodded. "It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it helps us understand. Maybe now we can find a way to move forward." That evening, Anna and Olivia sat with Margaret, the journal resting between them. Anna took her mother's hand, her voice soft but firm. "Mom, I know about Grandma. I understand now. But things have to change. We can't keep living like this." Margaret looked at her daughters, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and hope. "I'll try," she whispered. I promise, I'll try. The first rays of the morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over Margaret's living room. It had been several months since her illness, and while the road to recovery had been long and challenging, it had also brought unexpected healing. Margaret sat in her favorite armchair, her gaze soft as she watched Olivia and Michael preparing breakfast in the kitchen. There was a sense of peace in the house that had been absent for years. The tension that once defined their interactions had given way to a cautious, but hopeful harmony. Olivia, now heavily pregnant, moved with a grace that belied her condition. Michael hovered protectively, ready to assist at a moment's notice. Margaret marveled at the change in her son, seeing in him a strength and maturity that filled her with pride. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Margaret shared a story from her own childhood, something she had rarely done. "My mother was a strict woman," she began, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "I never had the courage to stand up to her. I suppose that's why I tried so hard to control everything around me. I didn't want to feel powerless." Olivia listened, her heart aching with empathy. "We all have our scars, Margaret. But we can choose to heal and move forward." Margaret nodded, her eyes misty. "You're right, Olivia. I'm trying." The arrival of the baby brought a whirlwind of joy and chaos. Olivia went into labor early one morning, and Michael rushed her to the hospital, his face a mask of nervous excitement. Margaret stayed behind, anxiously pacing the living room until the phone rang with the news. "A healthy baby boy," Michael's voice crackled through the phone. "We're naming him Samuel." Margaret's heart swelled with joy and relief. "I'll be there soon," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. When Margaret arrived at the hospital, she found Olivia cradling the tiny, swaddled baby in her arms. Michael stood beside her, his eyes filled with tears of happiness. Margaret approached slowly, her eyes locked on her grandson. "He's beautiful," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Olivia smiled, her exhaustion overshadowed by pure happiness. "Would you like to hold him?" Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face as she gently took Samuel into her arms. In that moment, the weight of past conflicts seemed to melt away, replaced by the warmth of a new beginning. As weeks turned into months, Margaret tried to respect the boundaries Olivia and Michael had set. She visited often, but never overstayed her welcome, offering help when needed but maintaining a respectful distance. There were moments of tension, old habits that resurfaced, but they were fleeting and quickly resolved. One sunny afternoon, as the family gathered in the backyard for a barbecue, Margaret watched Olivia and Michael with Samuel. The baby's laughter filled the air, a sweet symphony of new life and endless possibilities. Anna joined them, her presence adding another layer of harmony to their evolving family dynamic. Michael found himself daydreaming about Samuel's future. "Do you think he'll be a doctor? Or maybe a teacher, like you?" Olivia chuckled, resting her head on Michael's shoulder. "Who knows? We can guide him, but his path is his own to choose." Margaret, who had been listening, joined them with a knowing smile. "The best plans often go awry," she said softly. "We can't control everything. Sometimes, we just have to let life unfold." They all laughed, the tension of the past giving way to a shared understanding. Margaret's words were a poignant reminder that while they could nurture and guide, they couldn't dictate the future. It was a lesson Margaret had learned the hard way, and one she was finally embracing. Margaret sat beside Anna, her heart full. "I never thought we'd come this far," she said quietly. Anna smiled, her hand resting on her mother's. It's a new dawn, Mom. We're stronger together. Margaret nodded, her eyes shining with gratitude. Yes, we are. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over the yard, Olivia and Michael stood together, their arms around each other and baby Samuel. They looked toward the future with hope and determination, their bond stronger than ever. In the background, Margaret laughed with Anna, the sound a gentle reminder of the journey they had all taken. There were still challenges ahead, but for now, they basked in the warmth of their hard-earned peace.